Yo, what's up everybody? Joshua Casper here with a Loom 2 tutorial. Today we're going to make a nice reggae style organ for those reggae chords. This is what it's going to sound like hopefully when we're done. Okay, so there's a lot of versatility, obviously, just like whenever you're sound designing anything inside of any of these awesome synths that are out these days. You know, we can really shape that sound using the filters and using the envelopes and things like that, not to mention effects. I found that when you're using Loom 2, at least my approach is to either start by getting a tone you like, or start by getting a shape you like. So what I mean by that is like this organ has a certain tone to it, and it also has a shape to it. And the shape is modified by like the Decay module, and it's also modified by the envelopes. But tone-wise, the odd even, the organ module, the Octaver, the Lowpass Filter, and even this panning, I guess pan is a little bit back and forth between the two, but those dictate the tone or the sound, and then you shape the sound. So when I start sound designing, sometimes I'm just doing it just to go crazy and maybe stumble upon something, which is where that random button really comes in. But for the most part, I'm like, well, what kind of instrument am I looking to make? Is it a bass? So I'd start with the tone of the bass, get it nice and low and dirty if it needs to be dirty, or clean if it needs to be clean. Or for something like this, where it's kind of like a plucky organ stabby sound, I might adjust the envelopes first and then jump into the tone. So that was just a quick note on how to get started using additive synthesis, because it's a really unique way to create sounds, and it can be kind of overwhelming, especially if you don't have any direction sort of planned out. So in this tutorial we're going to make this organ sound from start to finish. It's fairly easy. It might be a little bit different just because that's the nature of the beast, but let's just go ahead and get started with it. So what I'm going to do, go ahead and duplicate that channel. I'm going to go ahead and group all of this stuff. Turn off that one, shut it down, and let's open up this new Loom. And what we're going to do is come in and go to the default patch. Cool. So I'm actually not going to use the gain module for the last module. I'm actually going to use the hype module. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and put the gain module right here. It's under basics gain. I'm going to turn it on. It's going to be sent to envelope 1. And as I was telling you before, this is where I kind of want to sculpt the overall sound before jumping into the tone. So before we do that, let's go ahead and change this to hype. It's in the filtering at the bottom. And for the gain, everything looks good. And we're just going to have to, as you can see, it goes to envelope 1. We can change that if we wanted to, but the default is envelope 1. So this is where the main sound is going to happen. So let's go ahead and adjust this to get kind of that plucky style. Okay, so we're good to go there, and it doesn't sound that great, but we've got the, you know, the overall essence of the pluck, or the keys, I guess it would be. And let's just go ahead and add a decay module. But before we do that, in fact, we need to change our voices. We don't need that many voices. We can drop it down to 128. Let's go up to the maximum of 8 polyphony, and let's just drop it down 1 octave. All right. The next thing we're going to do is go ahead and add a decay module. Come in, basic modules, nope, filtering modules, decay. Cool, so we're kind of starting to shape it a little bit more. Let's go in and add the organ over here, and obviously organ, right? We're making an organ style patch, so we can go organ 1 or organ 2. I'm gonna go ahead and put it on organ 2 now, but just remember that organ 1 is there, so when you're done making this patch and you kind of want to give it your own sort of spin on it, you can go in and change it to organ 2. Let's change the style to clear. All right, and let's just change the dampening. All right, moving forward, let's get the, again, let's focus on tone for a second and add the Octaver, I believe it's called. I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing that right. If you come in right here, and what this is going to do is really widen it up because it's going to add extra harmonics inside of the sound. So that's with, that's without. So maybe you like that sound, but I want to add a couple extra harmonics here. I'm going to do 2 octaves and 4 stages, and I'm really going to crank up the dampening. Let's add a low pass filter, filtering systems, low pass. And you might say that sounds kind of like it did before you added the Octaver, but it is different. There's a lot more information inside of the spectrum, and now we can use this frequency knob to change the tone of the organ itself. You know, later on, if we need something darker or brighter, now we can just use this, and this will be there adding to that sound, and it's going to make it more, you know, much more powerful, this one knob right here. And again, this is getting sent to envelope 2, but I really don't want to get sent to envelope 2, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it all the way down and just leave it there for now. And I mean, we can shut it off if we wanted to, but I'm going to leave it on because I am going to adjust this envelope in a little bit, and then we can, again, we'll have that option to change the sound quickly without having to come in and program too much stuff later on. The next thing to do to really open it up is add a pan effect, and that's going to be under effects modules, panning. And what we want to do is actually send it to an LFO. So LFO 1, just going to turn the rate down just a tad. So there you go. You can kind of start to hear it moving around. And that's just that little bit of movement that we're looking for. And while we got the LFO kind of in focus here, let's go ahead and send the low pass filter to it as well. Just a tad again. And just keep the note, or at least I want to bring your attention to the fact that I went to the left on this, and this affects how the filter reacts to the LFO. So I went to the left here, but the right over here, right? And just for fun, let's send the gain to that LFO just a tad as well. And let's jump into this hype here and kind of sculpt the sound a little bit more. And that sounded pretty good. And now let's adjust this envelope 2 here, because like I said before, we want to be able to adjust that low pass. If we move this now to something like this, you'll see that we have control, or it's going to give us a little bit more options of customizability, if that's even a word. I'm not even sure if it is a word, but that's there for us in the future if we want it. And the next thing we can do is add some subharmonics. And maybe a little bit of spectral distortion if we really want to get crazy, right? Let's add just a little bit. That sounds pretty good. And we can come over and adjust the overall level. We can add some effects here. Let's keep the reverb on Hall, turn down the mix, turn down the time a little bit. So that pretty much is it. But like I was saying before, we can come in and tweak this out as much as we want, wherever we want now. So the hype is going to give us a really good control over the tone. Also, this low pass filter frequency and how much we send it to the envelope. Also, how much we send it to the LFO, and really the real shape of the sound is going to be controlled by this ADSR envelope 1. And another thing we can do to make it more realistic to an old school organ is on the global pitch, send it to the LFO just a little bit. I mean, just a little bit. If you go too crazy, you can see there's just a little bit of blue right there, maybe a little bit more. It depends on how old and crappy the organ is you're trying to emulate. But I mean, really, that's it. And the sky's the limit at this point. You can do so much to manipulate the sound. You know, can add that distortion over there. You can do spectral modulation, spectral noise. You can get into the morph page and stuff. But for the most part, I mean, I think it sounds pretty dope. So anyway, that was a quick tutorial on using Loom 2 to get a organ style patch going. Feel free to, you know, like, subscribe, comment. I hate saying that, but apparently it works and helps helps your YouTube channel in the end. So anyway, like I said, quick tutorial in Loom 2. I really dig this synth, and I'm probably going to do more tutorials in the future. So if you have it and you want something specific to learn how to do something specific and get a specific sound or anything like that, just drop me a line and let me know. Anyway, I hope you learned something. We'll see you next time.